So before we get started, I want to make sure that everyone has something to drink and something to take notes. I do not have a workbook for tonight's class. I'm old fashioned, so I just use good old paper and pen, but whatever you want to take notes on. If you have the ability to dim your lights, make sure the temperature in your room is comfortable for you, and make one last quick trip to the restroom if needed, and just settle in and get comfortable. We're going to start here in just a minute. Some of the tools we're going to be using this evening in Zoom are going to be the chat box and the reactions buttons, namely the raise your hand button. If you don't know where those are, go ahead and try to familiarize yourself with where they're located and try to be on camera if at all possible. This just helps to build the energy in the room. And we want you to be able to actively participate in the class. So if it's okay with everyone, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So thank you so much for joining us this evening. It's so good to see all of you. It's a pleasure. Just to give you a little bit of background information as to who I am, for those of you who might not know. I know you can read from a slide. Basically, I'm an old nurse. I've been a nurse a long time and have been a lifelong student. Golly, for my whole life, it seems like I've been in school. So when I get a little bored, I go back to school and pursue something else. So my latest endeavor would be that I have my postmaster's degree as a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner. Psychiatry and mental health has always been very near and dear to my heart. So I decided to pursue that dream, as well as I've recently become a certified personal and executive coach. So always learning, always growing is where I'm at. In addition to the information on the slide, I am also, and probably more importantly, a wife, a mother, and a grandmother, which is the best job ever. I'm also a daughter and a sister, and my sister has joined us tonight all the way from Canada, and I want to thank her for being here with us. So what we're going to talk about tonight, well, first thing I want us to do is I want us just to take a deep breath, and we're going to do this together. Now, this is a special kind of breathing. It's called diaphragmatic breathing. Anyone ever heard of diaphragmatic breathing before? I see Bill nodding his head. Okay, so it just means we're going to breathe from the diaphragm. You know where your diaphragm is located? Right down below your chest, okay? And so I'm going to kind of walk you through the directions of how to do this, and then we're going to practice it together, okay? So the first thing I want you to do is I want you to relax your shoulders down intentionally. Rest those shoulders down. Place your hand on the top of your abdomen where your diaphragm is. And when you breathe in, your abdomen should expand like a balloon. It should pooch out, but your shoulders should rise very little. Okay. So just practice that first. So just take a breath in, and I should not see your shoulders move, just your abdomen. Feels like a balloon filling up, right? Now, what we're going to do is important to breathe through your nose for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, and breathe out through what we call pursed lip, kind of like you're blowing out a candle, for 6 seconds. And so we're going to do this together now. If you have the urge to yawn, if you need to stretch, that's okay. That's just your body's reaction to decompressing from the day. Okay. So don't be embarrassed if you yawn or if you just need to do your neck around, whatever you need to do. We're just going to decompress from the day. So I'm going to walk you through how to do this. I'm going to count, and then I'm going to do it another time where you're just going to count to yourself. So are you guys ready? Okay. Remember, relax those shoulders down, hand on your upper abdomen, and we're going to breathe in through our nose. Ready? Let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Release through pursed lip breathing. 3, 4, 5, and 6. You guys got it? We're going to do it again, and I'm not going to count. So you count in your head. Okay, here we go. Okay. Everybody done? All right. So wherever you were at 5 minutes ago, attending a meeting, reading over all your emails, making tough decisions, I invite you to just sit all that down. Okay. This space is intentional, it's reflective, and it's designed to support the most important leadership asset in the room, and that is you. So I want to say Happy New Year to everyone. And thank you for taking time out of your very busy schedules. I know you are all busy to attend this class. And thank you for showing up, not just professionally, but personally. And that choice matters more than you may realize. So my hope for tonight's class is that we'll be able to equip you to practice sustainable self-care that enhances performance, resilience, and authenticity. So to review over our learning objectives, I am a nursing educator, so we're always going to have learning objectives, right? To give you a little idea of what we're going to focus on and learn about tonight is we're going to discuss our mind and body connection. We're going to define self-care through a leadership lens. We're going to identify our personal and professional barriers to self-care, assess our current self-care practices and needs, develop individualized self-care strategies aligned with our leadership values, apply evidence-based techniques for stress management and energy renewal, and commit to accountability and integration. Okay, there we go. As leaders, we pour so much energy into others, like our families and our friends, our teams and organizations, but sustainable impact requires something we often overlook: our own well-being. For many leaders, self-care feels optional, or even worse, it feels selfish. But here's the reframe I want you to hold on to today. Self-care is not about escaping leadership responsibility. It's about sustaining it. Today's mastermind isn't about bubble baths or vacations, although those are amazing. It's about strategic self-care, the kind that helps you to lead with clarity, stamina, and compassion. We'll explore how caring for yourself isn't indulgent, it's actually a leadership competency. So now we're going to talk a little bit about the mind-body connection. Your mind and your body are not separate, right? They're combined, and combined, they are the delivery system for your leadership. As leaders, we often want to treat our mind as the control center and our body just as something to just push along. We push our bodies hard. But neuroscience and physiology tell us a different story. The brain and body are in constant communication. Stress is not just mental, it's biological. Chronic stress shifts our nervous system into what we call survival mode. You guys ever felt like you were in survival mode? Oh boy, have I. And so this limits things like the ability to think clearly, emotional regulation, and strategic decision making. When our body is under prolonged strain, cortisol levels stay elevated, sleep quality declines, our focus narrows, and our reactivity increases. This is why even highly capable leaders can feel short-tempered, disconnected, and exhausted, but unable to rest. It's not a character flaw, it's a physiological signal in our body. Self-care isn't about indulgence, it's about capacity. We're going to hear that word a lot tonight, capacity. So what I want you to do right now is come off mute. Everybody come off mute. I'm going to count to 3 and we're going to say capacity. So let's get off mute. And 1, 2, 3.
Capacity.
Very good. All right. When leaders regulate their bodies, they're able to think more clearly under pressure, to communicate with greater calm and presence, make fewer reactive decisions, and model sustainable leadership for their team. Now, how important is that? All eyes are on you as the leader. Your team will mimic what you model, good or bad. You teach what you know, but you reproduce what you are. That is a quote from John Maxwell. Let me say it again. You teach what you know, but you reproduce what you are. So, have you ever worked for a leader who failed to practice self-care? Think back in your careers. Or the opposite. Have you worked for someone who did a really good job of practicing self-care? What did you notice about that person, and what did you notice about the team that they were leading? So if anyone has a story that they can think of right offhand and would like to come off mute, I would welcome you guys to share either about a leader who failed to practice self-care or someone who did a really good job. Would anyone like to share?
Would.
All right, Summer, thank you.
Okay, well, Miss Monica, you know about my past TV career, and I had one of my best bosses was at WCBI. He was an amazing boss, but he had gone through a double lung transplant and then had skin cancer. And he wanted to be there so badly for the team, but sometimes I think the pushing of that made us a little more lost. We just kind of lost that guidance because I think sometimes you need to take that rest time to get your mind and everything organized. So even though I still consider him one of my best bosses, the team was definitely floating out there a lot, just feeling like on an island because, I think he was trying to make up for lost time too much and not really taking the proper self-care.
Thanks for sharing, Summer. That's very insightful. And did you have an experience with him before he was sick and after he was sick, or did you only know him after his illness?
I had come in right after the double lung transplant and about a year before the skin cancer.
Okay. So pretty much the whole time you knew him, he was ill.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing about that. And you even added in like the team was floundering, right? And so not just that he was failing to practice self-care. And goodness knows when a person is really sick like that, I cannot even begin to imagine, how overwhelmed they must feel, and they have obligations that they cannot walk away from. And so, our heart goes out in those situations. And so, what you want to do as, a team member in a situation like that is maybe approach them if you're have that kind of rapport, to have a conversation and see what could be done differently to try to alleviate some of the stress. Or, sometimes you have that opportunity to be real transparent and work with a person like that. Sometimes they're real closed off to it. So I personally had a boss at a hospital I worked at who was loved to be a martyr, was doing things like showing up at 2 o'clock in the morning, and she was still there at 8 o'clock at night, and thought that the place would not function without her. And all she was doing was demonstrating to her team poor self-care. Right. And so she was my boss, and we still had very candid conversations, as the role that she was playing, and how that was being reflected and modeled for her team. So, okay, well, very good. Thanks for the share. All right, so when we hear, and I want you guys to put this in the chat, okay? Type in the chat. When you hear the word self-care, what are some of the first things that come to your mind? Just one or two words. Self-care. What do you think of when you hear that? Okay, rest, prioritizing yourself. I love it. Yeah, recharging. Thanks, Jolie. Rest and time for yourself and family. Family's a big focus. Rest, peace, reflection, and focus. Very good. Now, it may not change, but how does it possibly change when you think of self-care as being a leader's responsibility? How does that definition change? Does it change? When you think of self-care as being a leader's responsibility, is there any change? All right. Refueling. Okay. Quiet time. Hard to serve others if you're on empty. Amen. Right? For sure. Yeah. Well, rest is a requirement, not a bad thing. It's just part of the journey. No, it's not a bad thing. Absolutely not. So, self-care is a strategic leadership tool. That's what we're going with tonight, right? Like, this is not selfish. This is not indulgent. This is strategy to make you a better leader. And what it'll do is sustain your clarity, your compassion, and your performance. It's not indulgent. It's just an intelligent energy management, right? Self-care for leaders are deliberate habits that sustain your, what's that word? Capacity to lead effectively. The word of the day, capacity. All right. So here's just another way to look at it or frame it. What we have here is this sustainable leadership where the two circles intersect. We've got our personal well-being over here on the left and our leadership impact on the right. If your energy disappears, your leadership ability will follow. If your clarity erodes, your decision-making will suffer. And if your emotional reserves run dry, your relationships are going to feel heavier. But when well-being and leadership align, then the impact becomes sustainable. So in chat, I'm going to have you guys in chat a lot tonight. I want you guys to finish this sentence here. The way I want to lead when I am at my best is with one word. The way I want to lead when I'm at my best is with peace, synergy, compassion. Good answers. Good answers. Intentionality. So important, Brooke. Super important to be intentional. Clarity. Yes. Have that clarity so we can make good decisions. Right. Absolutely. Okay. Very good. All right. So, make sure I didn't jump ahead. Sorry. Okay. So impactful leaders often struggle with self-care, not because they don't value it. I mean, it sounds pretty great to have self-care, to get rest and stuff, but usually this is because they value others so deeply. And here's the hard truth. The very traits that have made you successful can quietly work against your sustainability. Impactful leaders often carry invisible weight, like responsibilities, expectations, and the drive to serve others. These strengths can also become obstacles to self-care. So let's name a few common barriers to self-care. Things like overfunctioning, guilt, perfectionism, people-pleasing, a lack of boundaries, compassion fatigue, and the belief that I'll slow down later. So in the chat, if you can think of any other barriers to self-care, what are some other barriers? Maybe what's your personal barrier? What keeps you from carrying out self-care for yourself consistently? Yeah, in a hurry, sense of urgency, right? Yeah, there's no time. There's no time for that. Summer, I know it's an easy excuse, right? Because we all have 24 hours in a day. Some people seem to manage that 24 hours so well and it seems like they can fit it in. Gerald, you tapped into it. Unorganized, a lack of focus, and always being on, right? So who here has ever flown on a plane? If you've flown on a plane, raise your hand. All right. When the flight attendant, and if y'all listened to the flight attendant, I know a lot of people don't, but when they were explaining what to do in case we need oxygen, who do they always say to put the oxygen on first? Do they tell you to put it on your elderly grandmother? No, I see you guys. Y'all know the answer. Do they say to put it on your child first or your spouse? No. They always tell you to put it on yourself first. And why? Why? Because if you don't have oxygen, you can't help anyone else, right? Just like if you don't perform self-care, you're not going to have the capacity to support your team. So you are putting on the oxygen when you perform self-care. So awareness is power. And once we see our pattern, we can rewrite it, right? So we know our barriers and now we're going to rewrite it. We're going to do something really practical right now. So if you have paper, this would be a great time to use it, okay? Let's take a snapshot of where you are right now. We're going to rate ourselves on a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being the lowest and 5 being the highest in each of the following areas: physical, emotional, cognitive, relational, and spiritual well-being. Now, this is based on current reality, not your ideal, okay? So we're hoping this activity will help you to assess your balance and identify growth areas across these 5 interconnected domains of well-being. Starting with physical. What do we mean by physical? Energy management, sleep, nutrition, movement, and rest. How well do I maintain the physical energy to lead sustainably? Rate yourself 1 to 5. 1's low, 5's high. Next category, emotional. What we mean by that is awareness, expression, a regulation of your emotions, and self-compassion. One of my favorite topics, self-compassion. Do I honor my emotions and replenish my emotional reserves? 1 through 5. Cognitive. Mental clarity, focus, creativity, and a mindset towards problem solving. Am I thinking with clarity or reacting from fatigue? 1 through 5. Relational. Connections, communications, boundaries, and belonging. Do my relationships at work and home feel reciprocal and energizing? And lastly, spiritual, or sense of purpose, aligned with values, mission, and meaning in leadership. Am I living and leading in alignment with what truly matters to me? 1 through 5. So when you review your assessment, where are you thriving and where are you depleted? Notice the patterns. And this is not about judgment. We're going to demonstrate some self-compassion, okay? None of us is perfect, and I'm constantly saying that I'm a work in progress. But notice, where are you strong and where are you running on fumes? I want you to think about this. Which domain, if strengthened by 1%, would improve your leadership experience the most? Once you had time to digest that, if anybody wants to come off and be vulnerable, come off mute. You're welcome to share with me. I know it's vulnerability, so I'll let you decide. But do you have a domain that if you could improve by 1%, it would improve your leadership experience?
One of my strengths and weaknesses is I'll jump the first over the barbed wire, so I'll jump in. So
Good. Thank you, Will.
one of the learning things that I've been on this year, and one of the goals I've had this school year, is to get really good at sleeping. And so that physical domain really stuck out to me, and something I've been working on. Everything from, quieting my mind and my body to staying asleep at night to waking up refreshed, listening to podcasts about sleep, improving my environment for sleep. So it's been a really fun thing to learn, but I feel like that's an area I've been growing in my personal wellness and self-care to get really great sleep this year. I've had some wonderful successes and some setbacks along the way, but it's been a good thing to work toward. Absolutely.
That's amazing, Will. And sleep is kind of that way, isn't it? It kind of waxes and wanes, and but I will say, in the mental health world, 90% of my patients have issues with sleep. Okay. Lack of sleep, lack of good quality sleep will wear you out mentally. You'll fatigue, and it's hard to sustain leadership without good sleep. I recognize your vulnerability, Will. Thank you for sharing. Is there anyone else who would like to share anything that they noticed from this activity?
Well, I do believe I've been on a journey the last year with trying to maintain a healthier lifestyle, weight loss and all, but still there's areas like I think my wife would agree. I've never been someone to sleep a lot, and I've made great strides with a sound machine and a weighted blanket and all that, and I'm doing better, but still have work to do there. And with the job that I have in the house, still being able to go to the gym on a consistent basis. So I still have some work. So I guess you could say I'm a work in progress.
And we all are.
And my
Now,
wife is here. I believe she would agree too.
I will share with you guys that I refer to Gerald's weighted blanket as the third person in our bed. As much as he is a fan, I am not. So that marriage for you. Okay, well, very good. Thanks, guys, for sharing with that. And one last thought, we won't have to come off mute. You guys just digest this and can think about it to yourselves. But think about one small habit that may have slipped away as your leadership responsibilities have grown. Okay, think about that and really dial it in, because is that something that you need to get back on track with, right? And focus on. So very good. Thank you so much for the shares. All right, so we're going to develop an individualized self-care strategy aligned with our leadership values. So now that you've identified where you are, we did our assessment, let's talk about where we want to be. Here's where most leaders get stuck. They try to add self-care instead of aligning it. Sustainable self-care isn't about doing more. It's about aligning with what matters most. Okay, let's say that again. Sustainable self-care is not about doing more. It's about aligning with what matters most. I need to hear that. Okay. So I want you to identify one core leadership value, something that really means a lot to you, something you hold near and dear, something you value, one thing that as a leader is at your core. And then I want you to ask yourself the question, how can I practice self-care that would reinforce that value? Just that one value. Some examples: if your value is integrity, then rest helps you lead with clarity. So we act with integrity because we're clear-minded, because we're rested, right? If your value is service, renewal prevents resentment. So we can have compassion fatigue, can't we? When we serve everybody, we just pour out and we're serving everybody. And then all of a sudden we find ourselves being a little bit resentful, right? So if you will, put in chat one self-care practice that would directly support my leadership value is. What is one self-care practice in chat? Good morning, my friend Mukesh, all the way from India. Thank you for joining us. Gerald says time for consistent reflection. That'll be one self-care practice that would directly support his leadership. Yeah. I think that's something that I know he's worked really hard on, is making sure to carve out intentional time for reflection. Mukesh, did you come off mute? Do you have something to add?
Yeah, good morning, Monica. I'm sorry for the delay today. Just trying to fix up the issue with my camera, so I got a delay for that. Yeah, please tell me.
No problem, Mukesh, and we'll make sure you get a recording of the entire class so you can go back and look at it later, okay? But we're glad you were able to join us. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Monica. Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Yes, sir. So when self-care connects to our core values, it becomes mission-driven, not optional, right? And I think that's really important. If we can connect it to our core values, then it becomes mission driven and not optional. Okay, so we know that the human body is wonderfully made. It is not fragile, it's remarkably intelligent. Every single second, it regulates our temperature, it adjusts our heart rate and our breathing, filters out thousands of sensory inputs, and scans for safety or threat. All without asking us for conscious permission. It just does it. It's amazing, right? As we've already discussed previously, leadership doesn't happen just in the brain, it happens through our entire nervous system. So we're going to talk a little bit about the power of the senses. Our senses, sight, sound, touch, smell, and taste, they're not passive. They're direct communication channels to our nervous system. And here's why it matters. The brain processes sensory information faster than logic. Sensory input helps answer the nervous system's core question of, am I safe right now? Ultimately, that's what our body wants to know. Am I safe, right? Think about how your body feels when stress is high. Think about that. Your thinking narrows, your reactivity increases. Our bodies shift into protective mode. But when the senses detect familiar, neutral, calming input, the body begins to settle. That's why a familiar song can soften your mood. You ever had that happen? You hear a song and all of a sudden your mood completely changes. Feeling your feet on the ground, especially I love to feel my feet in the grass. Some people like that, some people don't, but man, I love it. This can slow your racing thoughts. And looking out a window can reduce tension. I know when I was doing clinicals at Burrell, at the main center at Burrell, they had this beautiful lake with geese out the window. And many times through the day in between patient visits, I would stand and look out the window and try to soak in that beauty. These are not coincidences. They're biological responses in our body. So one strategy that you can use for self-care is called grounding. I don't know if this is anything you're familiar with, but it is something we're going to practice using our senses. We want to bring attention back to the present moment, signal safety to our nervous system, and reduce physiological stress. For leaders, grounding can improve your emotional regulation, increase presence in conversations, reduce impulsive reactions, and restore your mental clarity under pressure. It's not about escaping from the stress. We can't escape it, but it's about stabilizing ourselves. So we're going to practice this, and I want it to become a leadership skill for you. This is called 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Reset. It's a brief exercise that leaders can use anywhere, before a meeting, after having had a hard conversation, or when you feel overwhelmed. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to, and I'm going to walk you through it. We're going to look at 5 things that we can see. We're going to touch 4 things. Notice 4 things that we can feel. Listen for 3 things we can hear, 2 things we can smell, and 1 thing we can taste or think about something we like to taste. We may not have anything to taste right now. All right, so starting from the top, just relax, just breathe, okay? Look around your environment and notice 5 things that you see. Now, notice 4 things that you can feel. You can feel your clothing on your body. You can feel the chair that you're sitting in that's supporting you. Your feet on the floor. What are 3 things that you can hear? These can be loud sounds, or they could be subtle sounds. What are two things that you can smell? Or if you don't have two things you can smell, think about or enjoy a memory from something that you enjoy smelling. And then one thing that you can taste. You don't have to rush through this activity. You can take your time and breathe. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Now, an interesting note about smell, this is just trivia, is closely tied to memory because the brain areas that produce smell are directly connected to those responsible for emotions and memory formation. These are the amygdala and the hippocampus, and I'm going to give you a test at the end of this class. Not. This unique wiring, though, allows smells to evoke strong emotional memories more effectively than your other senses. That can make them powerful triggers for recalling past experiences. So this can be both positive and negative, right? If there's a smell that triggers a negative experience versus a smell that triggers a positive experience. So in doing this activity, you would want to make sure that you're smelling things that help you to feel good, not smelling something that would evoke a bad memory. So what does this do to the body? Doing an activity like this, it shifts attention from threat, perceived threat, to present moment awareness. It activates our parasympathetic nervous system, which this is our nervous system that slows everything down, the rest and restore nervous system. It lowers our heart rate. It decreases muscle tension, reduces our stress hormones like cortisol, improves clarity and emotional balance. In short, the body stops bracing and starts just stabilizing. And something like this can happen within 60 to 90 seconds. So it doesn't take all day. It doesn't take all week. It doesn't take, hours. It's 60 to 90 seconds. I believe this is my sister, is the Zoom user, says, I highly recommend grounding sheets and mats. This is something that she has shared with me previously. So might be something that if you guys are not familiar with, that you would research grounding sheets and mats. So I want you to reflect quietly to yourself. Which of the senses do you feel like helps you to ground the fastest? Of those, when you were looking, when you were feeling, when you were hearing, when you were smelling, when you're tasting, which one helped you to ground the fastest? And where in your leadership day could you intentionally use an activity like this? And you just reflect on that to yourselves. If you want to type in the chat, feel free. Yeah, between meetings and looking at the environment, Gerald. Yeah, there's a few more practical tools for sustainable energy that high impact leaders can use to maintain their energy and focus. First is called a micro break. A micro break is a 2-minute reset that calms the nervous system. Does anybody take micro breaks throughout their day? Maybe not really, not intentionally, maybe. Yeah. And so this can be anything from just stretching at your desk, going to the restroom. You can go hide out in the restroom for 2 minutes. Get a drink of water or just breathing, right? Just breathing for 2 minutes, just to give yourself a micro break. The next one is called boundary scripts. Now this one, if it doesn't come natural to you to set boundaries, that's going to take practice, right? You may have to write out some responses that you might use to set boundaries. Saying no to people sometimes, if you're a pleaser, If you're a yes person, can be really hard. So I would recommend that you find an accountability partner, whether that be your spouse, a friend, a colleague, whoever, and maybe role play some potential times where you might need to set some boundaries. That way, when it occurs, you're ready. You're practiced up. But having boundary scripts is a good thing to do to practice self-care. That way you're not taking on too much. And then the last one of these tools for sustainable energy is called recovery rituals. And these are short routines that signal to your brain that it's safe to rest. There's a lot of these, a ton. What I thought about myself was bedtime routines. Things like taking a warm shower or bath, using a weighted blanket, having a scent like lavender, cedarwood, vanilla, whatever you like, drinking a warm beverage, listening to some soft music, maybe cuddling with your pet or your loved one. So these would be some recovery rituals, and this is going to signal to your body that it's now safe to rest. What we don't want to do is overstimulate, right? We don't need to drink caffeine before bed, even though my husband's drinking coffee right now. We don't need excessive blue light exposure. We don't need to do a real strenuous exercise activity right before bedtime, right? We need to do things that calm us, that tell our brain time to settle down, and it should be a recovery ritual. Now, like I said, there's many others. You guys can Google this and look this up, but there's lots of really neat things that you can do to signal to your body even throughout the day that it's safe to rest. Your body is not an obstacle to your leadership. It's actually one of your greatest assets. When you learn to work with your body instead of overriding it and pushing on, you lead with more clarity, calm, and capacity. You guys have offered some insights in the chat. Brooke says taking a hot bath before bed is an essential for her. Okay. And Will says calm is contagious in a house with little children. Practicing calm helps them relax as well before bed. Absolutely. Because you're the leader of your household. And what's your team looking at? The leader, right? They're modeling whatever they see demonstrated is what they're going to do, just like the grown-ups you lead. They're all looking to you. And so whatever you model, that's what they're going to do. Gerald loves the sleepy time tea. Yes. And the sound machine. Yep. That sleepy time tea, he just rolls over under his weighted blanket and away he goes off to sleep. All right, so the next part is integration and accountability. With this, self-care, it's not going to stick around without structure. Like, we can dream that we'll do all these things with self-care, but tomorrow you'll go back to work and just go right back to our same, not taking micro breaks, so we have to have structure with this in order to cement it and make sure we're going to do something different, right? And so what I want you to do is I want you to identify one action, just one, no matter how minute, no matter how small, one action that you'll commit to this week. And then I want you to think about who or what you can do to help hold you accountable. Who is going to be your accountability partner, or what process can you put into place to help hold you accountable? And remember, it's not about perfection, because we're not perfect and we're not going to be perfect. It's just about consistency, intentionality. Okay. So I want you guys to take just a couple of minutes and I want you to write down your personal self-care commitment statement. One action you'll commit this week, one person that will help hold you accountable, our process. I'd like to ask if anybody would be willing to come off of mute and share what their personal self-care commitment statement is. It doesn't have to be eloquent, just what would you like to work on this week? And then how are you going to make sure you work on it? Yes, Summer.
I'm struggling with the how I'm going to make sure I'm doing it, but that 2-minute break idea sounds like a very good idea. And I like to drink either hot tea or like bone broth. So maybe I take a 2-minute break and heat me up a cup of something warm and just kind of take a minute for myself, even in the, the work day, and recenter.
Okay. And so if you would like, Gerald, will you put my phone number in the chat? Summer, you can text me. Text me however often you want to. You text me multiple times a day, or you can text me once in the evening and say, today I took 3 micro breaks. Anybody else want to share?
I've only got X amount of time in my day, like everybody else. And so for me, I always say with the bigger things, I can fill up my time with small things. They're important, but I always delay the bigger thing because I'm like, I really don't have enough time right now to get started on this. So I'm just going to do these 5 little things, get this knocked out. Then I can focus later on that. And then whenever it's later, I'm like, I'm worn out and I don't get to the big thing. And so then that big thing stays there until it has to be done. So to not delay that, that's one thing that I would really want to work on.
Very good. And so what is, who's a person or a process that can help hold you accountable to see that you work on that?
So I've been working on it prior to this, but it's one that's still sticking out to me. I use Google Task, and I have it set every day for my planning period right now. As soon as the planning period starts, that thing pops up every single day as a reminder that way.
Excellent. Excellent. So that's your process, right? So it doesn't have to be a person. It can just be a process, that as long as there's something there, to hold you accountable. Very good. And remember, it's not about perfection. We're not going to be perfect. Okay. We have to tell ourselves that over and over again. I am a work in progress. Okay. So here's our picture. Leadership impact starts with internal sustainability. You can't pour from an empty cup, but you can sure lead from an overflowing one. Summer says she's never heard of Google Task, so that was a good tip. And Brooke says she can totally relate, Trey. Thinking of it as biting off one little piece at a time has helped her with larger tasks, and me as well. Definitely, Lord. Some of the tasks I had to do in school just overwhelm, so you have to break them up into little bitty tasks. So, does anyone have anything else they'd want to share before we close out for this evening? I sincerely thank you all for coming. It means a lot to us. And you didn't just show up for other people, you showed up for yourself, which is amazing, right? It's a great way to start a new year. And for those of you that are in our current mastermind series, I want to remind you that our last session is going to be next Thursday, January 22nd at 6:30 p.m. Central Time. We'd love to have you guys there if at all possible. Just wanted to give a reminder for that. And you should be receiving email reminders as well. And okay, so I kept you down to about an hour. Now you have time for self-care. So go do something for yourselves, okay? Thank you, Will. I got an ovation. All right, guys, have a good night. If anyone will stay on a minute, if anyone's got any questions, concerns, anything else you want to offer, feel free to stay on with us. Otherwise, have a great night.